Welcome to Name That Object Symbolism Edition, presented to you by Kiersten Boyer, Francesca Di Maisip, Randy Tapia, and Kelly Markley.
Studying 2-year-olds was more realistic in this experiment simply because at this age, toddlers are continuously learning new vocabulary, and in turn, it becomes a part of their everyday lives. In terms of language development, toddlers will repeat some or most of the words they hear from adults and other peers as a learning tool. They also learn more about the world around them through some of the 5 senses, for example, sight, touch, and sound. Symbolic flexibility is when the meaning of a symbol can change or can have multiple meanings. Monolingual is the instance in which an individual is fluent in only one language. Unimodal bilingual is the instance in which an individual is fluent in 2 spoken languages. Bimodal bilingual is the instance in which an individual is fluent in 1 spoken language and 1 sign language.
The question many researchers are trying to answer is whether or not symbolic experience in young children leads to differences in the developmental path of children's symbolic flexibility. The following clips are a depiction of the study performed by Dr. Emily Russell and Catherine Sandhofer in their article titled, How Symbolic Experience Shapes Children's Symbolic Flexibility.
This is a bell, right? Can you say bell?
Can you say it? What's this called?
This is a rubber ducky. Can you say ducky? What's this called? Teapot. Very good. Ooh, yummy tea. And what's this?
Beck.
Good. And this one? Bell?
Can you say it louder?
The participants used in our study were 2-year-olds recruited by a shared laboratory database through school facilities in the greater Los Angeles area. The experimenter used a quasi-experimental design for the experiment. Children were placed into the monolingual, unimodal bilingual, and bimodal symbolic experience groups based on their parents' responses on a questionnaire. The parent questionnaire consisted of 3 parts. The first part asked parents to list the languages their child is exposed to and approximately how long the child is exposed to each language on a daily basis. The second part asked if the child has been or is being exposed to sign language. If the parents answered yes, then they were asked at what age was the child exposed, when it ended, and who introduced their child to sign language. The third part asked parents to estimate their child's sign language vocabulary size by checking the signs their child produced on a list of 84 common nouns and verbs. Children were placed in the monolingual group if the primary language at home or school is English and they are not exposed to sign language. Children are placed in the unimodal bilingual group if English and Spanish were introduced to them at home and in school but not introduced to sign language. Lastly, children are placed in the bimodal group if English is their primary language at home and school, and if they were exposed to sign language.
The sound label task consisted of a labeled novel object, unlabeled novel object, and a distractor object. The goal of the sound label task was to get the child to select the novel object when prompted by a hidden sound in the room. The child went through 2 training trials and 1 testing trial, which counted as 1 testing training trial. In the training trial, the experimenter would place a novel object and labeled it saying, "This is whoosh" 5 times. Then place a familiar object and said nothing. Next came the unlabeled novel object and pointed to it saying, "Look at this one" 5 times. The experimenter then placed another familiar object and said nothing about it. This was the training trial and was repeated twice. Testing followed immediately after the training trials. The labeled novel object, unlabeled novel object, and a distractor novel object was placed in front of the child. The experimenter said, "Give me the whoosh." Whatever the child gave him would be reinforced with a thank you. The testing training trial was repeated 4 times in total. The scoring for the sound label task was 0 through 4, and which was contrived from the 4 testing training trials.
The results of the sound label task confirmed that there was a statistically significant interactive effect of age and symbolic experience. Monolingual children scored a 1.13, bimodal children scored a 2.0, and unimodal bilingual children scored a 2.13. The hypothesis for the sound label task was supported. Children's performance appears to vary as a product of their symbolic experience. One limitation of the study was the age of the children, as there was a possibility monolingual children were less likely to map sounds of novel objects in the sound experiment. Another limitation was vocabulary. Unimodal children appear to have had a larger English vocabulary than Spanish vocabulary. This contributed to the differences observed in the sound task. Other possible limitations include previous exposure to language and sounds, any unknown issues with the health or hearing of the children, and a psychological and/or emotional state during the sound label task. Future directions of the study should include more research of monolingual children, as they are the minority in the U.S. What has been considered typical of symbolic development might be opposite, and future consideration of testing in gender-specific groups for variances. The social implications of the study results are that children having dual symbolic experiences creates a steady progression of symbolic flexibility. Although monolingual children trail behind slightly in symbolic flexibility, they eventually reach the same level of flexibility later on.
Conclusion. The unimodal bilingual children scored higher than the 2 other groups when it came to the sound label task. Since they are fluent in 2 languages, it gives them a more extensive vocabulary. Unlike the other groups of children who have only been exposed to 1 language, this could have impacted their vocabulary. On behalf of Kristy's Entourage, we would like to thank you for tuning in to Name That Object Symbolism Edition. A special thank you to our live actor for taking part in our video. Kristy's Entourage out!